This is Eye on Hong Kong with Key.
And this is Harminder, and we'll be discussing the top news for the week involving Hong Kong and China. And happy Chinese, Lunar New Year. Let me get the vocabulary right. Lunar New Year.
Regina, that's made me laugh so many times this week. I could watch that every day.
Every day, all day, 24 hours. Have a special channel set up on cable.
I know, feeling the love of your people there.
Here's an idea, an app, just to play that video clip all day long.
Yes.
You make $1 million just right that app.
What would you call it? Broomhead at Lunar New Year? Something like that.
Don't say that. You hurt her feelings.
Oh,
We love you, Regina.
no, we don't. We hate you.
So we're here at the 38th episode. And Lee,
Hello, Harminder. How are you?
good. Thank you for coming. Key, are you cold right now up in sunny New York?
Key is going to go through a language readjustment, re-education process when he gets back.
Why?
Because he's adopted all these awful Americanisms like and awesome and things like that.
I think it's awesome that he's over there.
Awesome.
So
Kinda like awesome.
we had the budget.
We had the budget this week, and
This week.
Oh, don't do that. You're going to annoy me. Don't over like. Yes, we had the budget this week.
And John Jung unveiled it on Wednesday. What was your opinion of it?
My opinion was that politically he was pretty good. His intro was talking about the need for looking beyond material well-being. He was directing his comments to the youth of Hong Kong, and that was politically quite wise.
He said that this generation has grown out of strictly monetary accumulation of wealth to spiritual accumulation and making a better society, a bit more egalitarian, stuff like that. Oh, something our chief executive fails to understand.
Fails to do. Yeah, the chief executive snipes and is bitchy towards segments of society, and this guy actually addressed them properly and spoke to people like they deserve to be spoken to. Certainly, if you're a politician and running this place. A friend of mine sent me a clip that the nice bits of his speech where he talked about that, and I read it and thought, wow, that's actually pretty powerful. Which pandem wrote that? And then when he told me that it was John Zhang, I was quite surprised. So politically, yes, he made a good politician. Politically, he dealt with all the gripes and moans of the majority of people in Hong Kong, the people who've got the voice, mainly the middle class. So he threw all the sweeties at them. He got his sums wrong, but then he deliberately gets his sums wrong, so he's got more to play with than he needs to. Every finance minister
always
does that.
off with the numbers.
Yeah, projections are projections,
But
right?
come on, you don't project 30 billion, what it was before he thought it would be. Here's 65.
Well, it was supposed to be 9 and it was 64, so it's about a factor of 8 times.
Way off.
Yeah, I don't know when he made his original projection whether they'd increase stamp duty on purchases at that time or
No,
not.
then that came out after.
Yeah, but he makes a habit of underestimating the surpluses, which
But it's grossly.
grossly true.
Yeah.
True. So does that mean that we're misappropriating funds because we don't estimate the surpluses correctly? Quite probably.
Most likely.
But he threw all the sweeteners he needed to do politically for that reason. He also identified all of the long-term issues facing Hong Kong, the most serious financially, at least, the most serious financially being the aging crisis and the future demographic time bomb, which is going to hit Hong Kong faster and sooner than anywhere else, possibly speaking, in the Western world.
Because we're at a 1.1, 1.2
1.2 birth rate,
which is awful because a replacement of the current population's at 2.2. Various statistics, say that. And if we don't have that, one, we're killing off Hong Kong people. Two, we have to replace that somehow.
We have to replace it with imported people, or you have to work longer. They are the two solutions. So he addressed those. He addressed those issues, which good on him. He addressed them. They've identified them. They know they're out there. But then the budget didn't actually do anything about them at all. It tinkered with a few things. It said, okay, to encourage you to have more kids, we'll increase the child allowance.
From 70,000 to
100,000.
100,000.
Well, I want to talk about that in a little bit more detail.
Sure.
And he said, yes, we've got an aging crisis. Let's set up a future fund. So let's have yet another big surplus build up so that we can solve this problem. But if you look at the amounts of money he's talking about, nominally they're huge. But in terms of percentages of GDP, they're irrelevant. If you're looking at an aging crisis, which is something that's a permanent structural population change in the future, any kind of fund like that, which is a top-up fund now, is not going to work. So,
why is that?
Because monetarily it's going to run out in 2 or 3 years. Look at the current surplus the government has now. The government has what's the amount? $800-something billion in terms of a cumulative surplus, not the 1 year, what they have already saved in previous years. That's equivalent to about 40% of GDP. Now, that's a position that most countries would be extremely jealous of having and would love to have.
Oh, yeah.
But look at it in real terms. What does it mean? Public spending is about 20% of GDP. So it means they've got enough money in the bank to fund public spending for 2 years.
And like we were told by Chris Lau just now, there's also the massive surplus in the exchange fund.
Massive surplus in the exchange fund, but even that would be another 2 years, approximately, of government spending, so you'd burn through it in 4 years.
Sure.
Now, you collect some taxes along the way in those years, but it's not going to take very long to burn through those surpluses if you have a serious aging crisis.
But the basic law also states that the Hong Kong government must be fiscally conservative. It is not allowed to jump into too many populist policies that burn through their surpluses and whatever's been saved or whatever's coming up.
I think if you run a fiscal surplus, then you're being fiscally conservative. Which other governments in the world do that?
Got a good point.
First point. Second point, they run public expenditure at about 20% of GDP. The UK is about 40% of GDP. Most Western European countries range from 40 to 45, some up to 50% of GDP. So Hong Kong spends less than half or less than half of what most Western democracies spend in terms of their social services and public spending. Now, that's a political decision that the government takes. You can agree or disagree with it, but that's the framework. Most people in Hong Kong agree with that framework. If the basic law says that that's the appropriate thing to do, then so be it. So we have to work within that framework.
Right.
But if you're going to restrict it to spending no more than 20% of your GDP, you're going to have to find a way of dealing with the aging crisis.
And most likely they're going to deal with it by importing more labor and immigrants from the mainland. Because we have 780,000 that have come in from 1997 onwards. So that's just going to increase. And then that fundamentally changes the society as well.
Yes. So what do people want?
Exactly.
So you have, in terms of the aging crisis, you've got 4 ways of dealing with it. Firstly, you can work longer. Secondly, the people who get old, you can let them rot and die. Seriously, that's an option. You just don't take care of them and you let them rot and die. That's the second option. The third option, you import more people. And the fourth option is you have more kids.
So people
go out and have sex.
Yes.
That's the solution to Hong Kong's problems. More sex.
Pop Viagra if you have to.
Viagra if you have to. So talking about let's look at these one by one because they are important. They're the only ways you can deal with this problem. Well, work longer. The government's done something for certain public sector workers about increasing the retirement age from 60 to 65. The police officers want to do that, but the government said no, but most other civil servants can now work to 65.
Right.
Good. In most Western European countries, they're talking about raising that to 70. So how long?
67 now in the UK?
67 in the UK, 67 in the US, I think now, for federal benefits. It will need to increase within the next 10 to 15, 20 years, actuarially speaking, to maintain, just to keep up with improvements in life expectancy, people will have to work till 70. And people who are being born now, it's quite possible they'll have to work to 80 or 90. If the average life expectancy goes up to 100, 110, 120, they'll need to do that.
I don't think life expectancy is going to go up that high.
Well, people keep eating and drinking the way they're doing.
Exactly.
Or the way I'm doing. So you've got to wait longer. So there's some movement in that regard.
Okay.
Secondly, let people rot and die. Well, do we really take care of our old people in this city?
Well, traditionally, Chinese culture says that you take care of your parents until death. You know, you keep them in your house, you live with them, and, you know, you take care of them. Unfortunately, it's not followed through all the time.
And what happens is, why are there so many little old ladies scavenging cardboard and pushing that around the streets of Hong Kong?
Good question.
Whose families do they belong to?
Well, exactly.
So if you don't have a family, or you've disowned your family, or your family don't care, what are you going to do with these people?
That's the question.
Okay, so at the moment,
and then there's not enough public old folks homes for them as well. The waiting list is so long that they die before they get in there.
Well, I think de facto we are doing the equivalent of letting these people rot and die. We let them scavenge. They live in subdivided flats in horrible hygienic conditions. They don't have access to proper medical care, or they wouldn't know what to do, or they are brought up to believe that social assistance is immoral and that is undignified and they won't touch it.
But they, to that point, they say, though, but if they receive a universal pension, that's okay.
Universal pension would be okay because it's an entitlement and everybody would get it.
But that makes no sense. You see, this is the problem I have with universal pension. You're going to give it to anybody. Most of it's going to be abused by going to the jockey club and having a good day with it. Okay? First of all, $3,000 is ridiculously low. That's
the level of the
pittance.
CSSA, roughly.
Yes. Right? And I think that's awful. I think it should be 6,000, 7,000, maybe even 8,000. But with our surplus, it can be 10,000. I have no problem with that for people who need it. You cannot, but when somebody was asked in a recent article on South China Morning Post, will you accept money from the government? No, I think that's wrong. Going into the CSSA office and getting it. Okay, but do you agree with universal pension? Oh yes, that would make me really happy. What's the difference? It comes from the government. There is no difference.
Because one is seen as a bailout and a handout, and the other is seen as a general entitlement that everybody has. You're right in terms of where it comes from, but culturally speaking and from a human dignity point of view, there is a big difference.
Well, then culturally speaking, then they should also be being taken care of by their kids.
So these are addressed. I agree. Somebody should be taking care of them. If somebody won't accept money from the state because it's undignified, there should be a way of reaching these people, and it's failing.
With such a huge surplus, I have no problem with giving people who need it after a means test $10,000 a month.
Sure. Why don't they set up a hostel for these poor people and let them live there?
Plenty of money for that. You know, you're talking about land funds all day long and space and more land for flats. So how about land for retirement? Well, then they say, well, we can do it in Shenzhen. Then do it. But then the thing is, you're taking them out of their community that they've lived in all their life. It's different. When you cross the border, it's not Hong Kong, and you can feel that.
There has to be a solution. Other countries have worked on it. There's no absolute cure for all poverty. I know that. But the situation in Hong Kong is disgraceful.
It is, considering how much money there is in this city, it needs to improve.
It needs to improve. So that's the second. So you're going to let them die, or you're going to let them rot like we do at the moment. Thirdly, have more kids. Right. They increase, John Zhang said in his speech that they are going to increase the child allowance from $70,000, the tax allowance from $70,000 to $100,000 per child. Okay?
Allowance exemption.
Tax exemption. Yeah. So that works out in terms of cash in your pocket if you pay the highest rate of marginal tax in Hong Kong. A married couple with 2 kids means you have about $9,000 more a year.
Yeah.
A year. Okay? So this tax cut means you have $9,000 a year because of this. If you've got 2 kids. If you've got 1 kid, it's $4,500.
Right.
So how much does a kindergarten cost?
Yeah, about $4 or $5 grand at the lowest end per month.
Per month. At the upper end, $10,000.
Yeah.
So what you save in tax in a year pays your kindergarten for a month. And it pays your domestic helper about the same per month. Okay. All right. It's a step in the right direction. Is it really going to encourage you to have more kids?
No.
What is going to encourage people to have more kids? Proper working arrangements, creche facilities in offices, flexible working, paternity, maternity leave, childcare, subsidized childcare. They are the things that are going to make people have more kids. Not saying, okay, you've got $9,000, you can pay for 1 month's kindergarten fees.
Yeah, I think
so. Move in the right direction. I don't want to sniff at it. I'm just saying that in terms of dealing with a structural problem, it's irrelevant.
Right. I think more childcare facilities subsidized would encourage more people to have kids so they can get to work to pay for the cost of more kids and stuff like that.
And also the working conditions,
work-life balance needs to be better. Yeah.
A lot is spoken about that, but work-life balance is crucial when you're talking about having kids.
Especially with people from this generation, they say the post-80s generation, they care more about work-life balance. But then again, you see some of these people, what's your work-life balance?
Exactly. Look, if you got the chance to go, you got the chance to go and live in Canada, where you have flexible working arrangements that fit with school timetables, that fit with the school academic year.
But property prices are lower.
What are you going to do?
You got more space. You know, it's kind of different in that way. That's why you want more kids. But still, people average still have 2 kids.
But at least they have 2 kids.
But the immigration policy is very high.
Look, looking at it from a human point of view, if you've got those options, which many in the middle class do have those options, they are internationally mobile. Yeah. If you could move for that, is $9,000 going to keep you here? No. Is flexible working conditions and creche facilities and proper childcare, is that going to help you? Possibly. Right?
Most likely.
Most likely.
Yeah.
So they are the issues that need to be dealt with, not $9,000 in your pocket. And the other thing about, as you mentioned before, importing more people. Where are we importing people from at the moment? Mainland China. What kind of problems is that causing? Huge.
A lot. The thing is, they're not assimilating into Hong Kong culture.
So where do we get these people from if we don't get them from mainland?
It's only going to be mainland. It won't be.
Why
from
don't we
anywhere.
get them from Cambodia or Vietnam or India?
Xenophobia.
So wherever we get these people from is going to cause problems, right?
Yes. But no, the problems that are caused by importing people that are not from the mainland is that you got governments, so that's SAR and the central government, who don't believe that foreigners, even though they've been here all their lives, they're still somehow called foreigners. They can't be trusted into. It's a Chinese society. It's xenophobia. It really is. That's why it's nearly impossible to get a passport in China, mainland China. It's much easier here, and it's still not guaranteed. There have been people who've applied, who've had their families here for generations, have been denied, even though they're well off financially. They can speak the language fluently. No, you're still denied.
Well, Hong Kong needs to look at this, as does Japan and Korea. You need to look at
Japan also is xenophobic.
It's xenophobic and it's it's monoethnic.
Yeah.
You need to look at these countries that have monoethnicity on
They're
a large
screwed.
scale. They are screwed.
Yeah,
seriously screwed.
In about 3 generations, there'll be no Japanese at the rate that they're.
The countries which are likely to
procreating.
come through the aging crisis best, and we're talking about the next 30 to 50 years, right?
Yeah.
Are countries like the US, because it has a large Hispanic immigration, it has a good mix of population.
Illegal, yes.
Legal and illegal.
But no, Canada's a better example.
Canada's a better example.
Yeah.
Australia's
also a great example, but they are now, because of the lack of integration into Australian society, this is where Canada is more successful than Australia in immigration. People who immigrate to Canada, especially post-80s, they integrate in society much better. Where this new wave going into Australia, they just don't integrate, and then they have problems between you must accept my culture in this country. That makes no sense to me.
That makes no sense.
And then you have all these new parties coming up that are very anti-immigration, and you have extreme right wing parties that are just saying nobody that is not a certain skin color should come in here. That rises. It's also I will not blame it all on the indigenous population as much as I also blame it on immigrants that refuse to assimilate.
I think every industrialized country is going through a similar problem to different degrees, right? Every country is dealing with an immigration problem.
Okay.
Oh, no, I won't even call it a problem. Every country has certain levels of immigration that they need to have because they have doomsday on their doorstep in terms of aging crisis, and this is
Germany as well.
It's a very, very serious problem. You need to look at which countries are adapting best to it. That's not to say they don't have problems, but those countries which are adapting best, the US is adapting well to it because it's a nation of immigrants, and so it's used to it, right?
Sure.
Canada, reasonably in a European context, the best placed country is the UK, because the UK. It's a tolerant place. I'm not saying there aren't problems. There are problems, particularly with certain subcontinental immigration from Pakistan. But generally speaking, immigrant assimilation in the UK is going well. And somebody who's Indian or of darker skin would not have a problem going to watch an England football match and holding an English flag or wrapping themselves in the Union Jack at the Olympic Games.
If they assimilate like that. The problem is that when they're going to places and wrapping themselves in the Indian flag, That I have a problem.
Yeah, well, they
with.
generally speaking, they don't do that. But if you saw somebody
I see
in
it all the time
Germany,
sometimes
Germany,
in other
a
countries.
black German, it would look odd. You see a black Brit, it doesn't look odd.
Okay, you got a point there.
Okay,
You
so
definitely have a
I
point
think
there.
Hong Kong has a big problem with this.
Yes, it does.
And Japan has a big problem with this.
Yes.
Korea has a big problem with
Yes.
this. Where doesn't have this problem? I don't know. Does China itself, does mainland China have this problem? No, because it doesn't need to import people.
But it does have
exports people.
it also has this demographic problem coming
It also
up.
has this demographic problem, which is exacerbated by the one-child policy.
Yes.
So, keeping it in a Hong Kong context.
And sex ratio problem as well. They
And
got
sex-
two problems.
They got
over
two
there.
problems.
Yeah.
So Hong Kong, it's gonna have a problem. So it's got to deal with its xenophobia and its the problems of its substantial monoethnicity, and it has to be realistic about that.
Well, I think that they're just going to say open the gates up north and flood them all in.
Okay, so then deal better with the mainlanders. You've got two solutions.
But then I think the solution is going to be let them do what they want. Who cares? We're about to drown out the indigenous population anyways. They did the same thing in Tibet. They did the same thing in Xinjiang. So they're going to do the same thing here. They're doing it in Macau.
The other thing that struck me was the comment that John Zhang made about diversifying the economy, and there were some incentives to improve the cultural industries, broadly speaking, the artistic cultural industries.
yeah.
There was some sweetness, some money thrown towards
Sure.
those directions. Now, as a statement of aims of diversifying the economy, it's always good to have a diversified economy
Sure.
because it means it's more flexible, it can respond better to globalization, to trends. If you're dependent on one sector and that sector goes belly up, then you're screwed.
But here's the problem. Every time government gets involved trying to set up pillars of the economy, it has failed.
Okay, so we
Donald
need to...
Jung tried to make 6 pillars of the economy or whatever it was. One was like medical, one was tourism, which we already have. Logistics is already here. Certain education. It's all failed.
Okay.
IT industry has boomed without government, and now they somehow need a technology bureau.
So we need to look at the reasons why these industries do not flourish here.
In my opinion, the role of the government is promotion more than anything. They need to get these let's say, fashion designers into international shows by somehow promoting their products there. Not just the Hong Kong Trade Development Council stuff that they have here.
So what is Laura Cha doing in terms of promoting Hong Kong as a place to do business? Right, Hong Kong has advantages as a place to do business per se.
Absolutely.
Taxes are low. It's very simple.
Yes.
Administratively, it's not corrupt.
No.
Public administration works, generally speaking.
Yes.
Okay. So why don't artistic industries come here rather than going to the UK, places which are equally as expensive, or going
Well,
to...
those are hubs. I mean, you're talking
Okay,
New
so
York,
why isn't Hong
Paris,
Kong a hub?
Milan, and UK. I mean,
English
these
is
are
a
hubs.
language here. Why isn't Hong Kong a hub for these things?
I mean,
Cost?
other than Vivian Tam, I don't know any other Hong Konger that has made it to the fashion scene.
Security,
Yeah.
place is secure. It's very safe here. What are the reasons why? This is the
I
kind
really
of analysis.
think it's the promotion. I really do. I really don't.
Okay.
I really think this government's failing on promoting our movie industry, which is now crap. It used to be good. With our fashion industry, which is budding, and all these industries that are there, it's just not doing enough to promote. Subsidize their flights and everything. Get to Paris to put on their shows if they get a spot. You know, but the thing is, they don't. They help them here, but nobody comes here to see them.
So this is the kind of analysis that they
Yeah.
need to do, right?
Right.
So is throwing some money in a budget at the film industry and the fashion industry going to work? No.
It's better than nothing, but it's not the answer.
Okay. So again, through the budget in general, through lots of sweeteners, politically it was quite wise. And it identified the structural problems. Did it do anything about the structural problems? No, it didn't.
No, long term, it's there's still multiple problems, especially when it comes to housing, the poor.
One good
Elderly.
thing I noticed in terms of the expenditure was that health expenditure is going to be increased by 25%, which I thought
With an
was
aging population, that is necessary.
it's necessary. But it's a big jump in spending from one year to the next. I wonder how they're going to be able to deal with that money, because if there is already a shortage of medical professionals here, and in certain
Chinese U is building a new hospital,
is it?
but it's private. That's the problem.
Well,
Which
okay.
is, I don't think that's needed.
And I don't know how this fits in with the government's incentive to make people use private hospitals rather than the public hospitals. I don't know how that fits in terms of an integrated health strategy, but it stuck. The numbers came out of the page when I was looking at it in terms of the health growth and health expenditure. I think.
Well, they have the money to pay for it, at least for a while. The thing is, what happens when we do come into the structural deficit? Because John Jung is right in one thing. The global economy is very unstable. It's in a bubble in multiple aspects, not just property. It has to burst. Why isn't the Fed, the U.S. Fed, increasing interest rates? Because it can't. The moment it does it, the house of cards collapses. They're sustaining this house of cards as much as possible. They stopped quantitative easing in the United States. They started the next day in Japan. One place or another, it's going. And Japan's in its 20th round of it, and it hasn't fixed any of their problems. He knows this day is coming. He, of course, doesn't want to panic the market by admitting the truth. And he is setting up Hong Kong where we can ride the rough wave for a couple of years. And people are like, well, we'll burn through the reserves in a couple of years. That's all you need. By then, you should be back on your feet. If you're not, then there's real problems, right?
How long has it taken in the States?
That's a corrupt system right now. There's a fundamental problem within its system. We don't have that problem in our economy. We have money laundering, of course we do, right? But fundamentally, we are a very free market, and we pull ourselves by our own bootstraps when we're down, usually, in this city. It's just a matter of finding the right opportunity and the right market to pounce on. You know, the IT industries, it can flourish. This can be an app-making hub if the government doesn't get involved. It just needs to promote. Come here to make your apps.
But there have
we
been
got Cyberport.
We got Cyberport, and we got
one of the best infrastructures on the planet for
incubation center for Chinese U. Are they really helping? Subsidized rents?
Well, yeah, it helps.
Is Cyberport really that booming in terms of helping IT
It
entrepreneurs?
helps startups. It really does, especially with that subsidized rent that helps. And plus, it's a great place for a lot of startups to meet in one place, exchange ideas, and sometimes something great can come out of it.
So instead of CY Long going to Shenzhen saying this is a great place to set up a business and people should do that, why doesn't he go over to Shenzhen and say, hey guys, come here because you don't actually have to put up with your Google account and your Twitter account being blocked. You can come here to Hong Kong and do that. No,
exactly. That's what I'm saying. The government is usually the problem. That's one thing I agree with Reagan on, was that government isn't too much government is the problem, and it has failed, especially this one.
I also think that the Hong Kong people, the middle class particularly here, needs to wake up a little bit. It needs to realise that it gets sweeteners. The amount of tax it pays is very low.
Yes.
The amount of income tax, the highest marginal income tax rate here is 17%, and you pay no more than 15% of your income after the basic allowance.
If you're based in the Cayman Islands, you don't even pay more.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculously low. By international standards, it's about half of what you pay. You have no VAT, no capital gains tax, no investment tax. How much more do you want?
I'm sorry, but I love that.
Okay, most people love that. Yeah. Fine. Okay.
As a business owner, I love that.
Okay, most businesses and most consumers like that. Great.
Yeah.
But when you're used to having 75% of your tax rebated to you every year, that stops becoming a sweetener and it becomes an entitlement. So people have got used to this. So people have got used to having their cake and eat it and eating it again. What
happens on the day that comes that they can't do it?
When they can't do that. So I think on the one hand, he makes a good point of saying that one-off reliefs and sweeteners can't be on a sustainable basis. They need to be phased out, which is actually the purpose of his budget speech last year. If you look at rates, business rates is something that affected me.
Right.
The waiver on business rates was abolished, and we had to start paying business rates. Now he's abolished it again for 2 years. Right. So is he or isn't he getting rid of the sweeteners? There is a behavioural, attitudinal change that needs to happen in the mindset of taxpayers here. That is not happening.
But with a massive surplus of 60+ billion. I think he has to give some of it back to the taxpayer or the business owner.
Or he can spend it.
But spend it on what? We can't get a consensus on that. Oh, health. Okay. We build more hospitals.
Have you been to any public schools lately? State schools? Have you seen the states of their public toilets or their blinds or their desks?
Not yet.
Okay. Go around, just pick some state schools at random in Hong Kong. Go and have a look at them. you could go to each school and come up with a maintenance list that was as long as your arm, 10 times over.
But national education is more important.
Well, so
To
there
this
are
government.
plenty, what about the state of the roads? What about phasing out the pre-diesel 5 Euro 5 buses?
Oh God, yes. I mean, yes, I know. I agree with you. There are a lot of things that can be done, but at the same time, I can understand what the point of all this. Here's money back to you he hopes you save it or invest it or R&D,
or you get off the government's back with it.
Pardon?
You get off the government's back. You stop bitching about the state of Occupy and the political process and just
not going to happen. Not with young kids that don't see a future.
If you continually give rebates of such a massive amount of tax, people expect it. And when you stop doing that, the people will complain.
Before they announced 60+ billion, I thought 30 billion. I think this is the year where we're going to be told that no sweeteners. I really did. And then at 65, I'm like, oh my God. Of course, then I understood that he has to give some of it back, but what is it spent on? Yeah. That's a problem. Hey, at least we're getting food trucks.
Oh, yeah. That's a great idea, isn't it? Has he been around the streets of Hong Kong lately? Where are you going to park these things?
Ice House Street.
That's the street that's got the queue of taxis blocking one side.
Or the limos.
Or the limos outside Princess Building.
They could give away, roast goose and abalone to those rich fat cats that come out of the restaurants during lunchtime, double parking with their limos.
I'm curious about where these food trucks are going to go.
It's the stupidest idea that he's come up with. In principle, it's right. Bring back the hawker's license again, because they haven't issued a new one since the late 70s. Everyone that still has them still has them from then. And what needs to be done is, look, you have a space this much at this street as this designated time. You can sell your wares, keep it clean, and leave. How hard is that? There is space for that. And you can only say you, and you get these times. It's like you can allocate the spots. Make sure that it cannot be sold your time. It must be you. You must be there. Random inspections. You got to do that, right? Because people will abuse the system. Food trucks is not... I can understand hygienically food trucks are better, but it won't work in the city.
There's no road space in this
Exactly.
city. There's no road space.
Exactly. We have the weather for it, yes, but we don't have the road space for it.
Absolutely. So, in general, all the issues were identified, lots of nice sweeteners, but didn't deal with any of the structural issues. He kind of kicked the can down the road, and he made a couple of small...
What has he got left? A year left on his under...
Does he go when CY goes, right?
Yes. So he's probably like, hey, let me just get these 2 years over. I'm going to retire in Hawaii.
So what's he going to do? Is he going to stand? Because there were rumors that the political content of his speech was so bang on. Does that mean he's a candidate now?
I don't think one speech qualifies him as a candidate.
What about a Facebook picture of him throwing a baseball? Does that qualify?
I think he's trying to... the PR stunt of, look, I'm human too. Oh, come on. He said, I'm middle class too. I watch French movies and drink coffee. Let's not forget that. Just because he said one sane thing.
I don't like French movies.
I don't like them either.
Like
unless there's lots of nudity. But no, I'm just saying that it just makes no sense. Anyways, we'll be back in the second half. We'll discuss the other news of the week and some cool stuff coming out of the Oscars. So stay tuned.